Hi, I'm Josip, the host of the Network Podcast. I'm an ex-petroleum engineer, software developer, and security researcher. I founded Bura Security, a security shop that offers security auditing and advisory services with a special focus on cross-chain integrations and interoperability protocols. We've helped secure Layer 0, PancakeSwap, Centrifuge, Corn, and many other reputable projects in the space. If you're looking for security services, feel free to reach out through the contact that's in the description of this video. Welcome to the Network Podcast. Here we bring the best minds from the crypto industry to discuss the latest trends and share their personal and professional aspirations and struggles. Today I'm joined by Josselin, who's one of the leading experts in Web3 security. He holds a PhD in program analysis for security, and he was leading the engineering department of Trail of Bits until a few months ago he decided to pursue the path of an independent security researcher. He's built automated tools like Slither for static analysis that are widely used across the industry. It's hard to overstate the influence and positive impact he had on the Web3 security space. Hope you enjoy our conversation. Hi Josselin, it's a pleasure to have you on the Network Podcast, and thanks for taking your time to talk with me. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, and you? And thanks for having me. I'm really excited for this discussion.
Yeah, likewise. I'm very excited, been waiting for this. So, in this first segment of the interview, I just wanted to get to know you a bit better and also ask a few questions about your background and how did you get into crypto. So you hold a PhD in program analysis from crypto, so you have a very strong academic background. How did you go from academia into crypto? Did you kind of get interested in blockchain security because you've seen some bug or some interesting exploit? Can you take us to these early days when you were just entering the industry?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess I can give like a bit more background about myself. So I came from like the hacking world. So I was doing like traditional Web2 security, like web security, like application security and things like that. And I've been doing that since I've been like kind of a teenager, let's say. And over the year, I got really interested into like security, application security. I ended up doing a PhD in application security for traditional vulnerability like memory corruption, which gave me like I think a good kind of ability to do like program analysis, build tool, working on static analysis, symbolic execution, all type of things. And I ended up joining Trail of Bits like 8 years ago, and I joined the company not to work on blockchain, but to work on traditional security. But quickly after I joined the company, we had a client that wanted to get like a review on a smart contract, and we were like, no, why not? I did not have any kind of like knowledge on blockchain. I knew like Bitcoin, this type of things, but just from like a high level. And from the moment we had this client, it went really well. And from that moment, I ended up doing blockchain kind of full time for 8 years. So I'm not like a kind of crypto believer. I'm not like a crypto native in the sense that I did not join the blockchain space because I wanted to work on blockchain in particular, but more because there was a need and, I wanted to help kind of like the industry. I always, I was always thinking like the way I approach security is that, the way I approach like what type of security I'm working on is not necessarily as a security researcher, I'm going to kind of dictate what people are going to build or, I'm going to be like, okay, this is a new things and, people should be doing that. But I'm taking more an approach of, okay, people are going to build things, people are going to explore, new things. And my expertise is to help them to build, as safe, as secure as possible. So I was not, like a crypto native in any sense. I was really more like security background. People are doing something which is kind of like exploring this frontier of what, what the software industry is doing. Sounds cool, let's do it.
Cool. Makes sense. So you just kind of stumbled. You kind of started working. You thought you'll be just doing like standard Web2 security, and then just this kind of turned into you started doing security audits on smart contracts, and then obviously everything kind of went from there.
Exactly.
I mentioned you have a PhD.
Yeah.
I have to ask this since crypto has a very bad reputation among a lot of people, especially in academia.
Mm-hmm.
So, did you ever had remarks from your peers from academia, your friends, your colleagues telling you, don't don't do that. It's just a casino. It's like a financial industry. It's full of grifters. It's full of fraud. Did you
So
have these kind of?
I receive that, but not necessarily from kind of like my academic peers, but more from my kind of hacking kind of friends and everything. In particular, like, around 2017, 18, and like, on the early day, a lot of people that were doing security, like traditional security, were seeing blockchain as casino, as a scam. It's only, for people that are trying to, steal money from others. There's like no future. So I receive like criticism, but really more from like the Web2 security side. From the academic side, probably less. I think the academic world was always interested in kind of like blockchain, but they did not necessarily understood what's going on. But I think it was a bit more like open in that sense. While yeah, like some of my friends, I remember were like, what are you doing with your career and where are you going? But yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What did you say the biggest kind of difference between traditional Web2 security and Web3 security like is in your opinion?
Okay. That's a great question. There are a lot of different layers there. The first one I can think of is that the Web2 security is more mature. Like we have better tooling, better practices. People have been doing that for like a really, really long time. So a lot of things are, just better built because of like all the kind of history of like software security. On the other side, while like the blockchain security is less mature, the need for security is just significantly higher because it's a kind of like a attacker world. If you find a bug, you can directly steal the money. There is some protection, but it's still kind of like really difficult. So we are really kind of like more in a kind of like early day of like the industry versus like the Web2 security where it's just more robust and like everything is kind of like well known and so on. I think sometimes I think of the blockchain industry, it kind of reminds me of the hacking world in the 90s where there was a lot of kind of like YOLOing, a lot of things that people were trying to figure out what's going on. This is fun. We can hack on top of it. We can try type of things. So I kind of see like the blockchain security world as a parallel of the early day of like the Web 2 or Web 1 even security in that sense.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's still very young,
Yeah.
and then on the other hand, the stakes are much higher than in Web 2 security.
There is also like this, from the outside world, I think people see the blockchain industry as, people not serious and not considering security. But what I've seen over the year is that I've really seen kind of like the two sides of the equation in terms of like, people thinking about security. There are some teams that are definitely not really caring about security. They just deploy, they YOLO whatever they're doing. They're just looking for stamp of approval, and they don't have like really good practices. But at the same time, we have like some of the team that are probably at the frontier of what security is within like a company. They are really pushing the state of the art. They are using fuzzing, they are using formal method. They are, trying a lot of different things to secure their system, to secure their process. So there's kind of like this interesting place where within the blockchain industry, you will find people that are really bad practice, but some people have really, really good practices, and kind of like there's like this full kind of like panel of situation you can stumble onto.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I guess you maybe kind of are more skewed towards working with the teams that take security more seriously. You've led the engineering at Trail of Bits, so you probably work with a lot of like top-notch projects, like really good projects that really understand the importance of security. So I guess it's there's a bit of both in the industry. Okay, we'll talk a bit more about like the kind of the security practices and some of these other topics. you spent like 8 years in Trail of Bits, and you joined the company when it was still kind of scaling and employing people, and just frankly, I mean, I suppose you were just figuring out how to grow and figuring out what to actually do. We'll also touch upon this a bit later, but can you give us maybe like one example on what were some of the challenges when you were growing in these early days? There was the ICO bubble, there was the DeFi summer, there are all these like big things happening in the industry. Can you give us some examples, like just one?
So, for example, on a personal level, what was kind of challenging for me through like, my time at Trailofbit is that I ended up, having to managing, leading people, but at the same time staying technical. I come from like an engineering background, so I'm, really like focused on the technical side at the beginning. If you were asking me like 10 years ago where I would be today, I would be telling you like, oh, I'm going to just do technical work. I'm not going to, interact that much with like many people. I will be like really more focused on the technical side. And what I ended up doing is quite different, where, I ended up managing a team. I ended up like leading a team. So I had to learn a lot about managing people, career, growing a team, structuring a team, thinking about like, strategic direction, thinking about like, ahead of the industry, and build up kind of like these leadership skills. And I had to do that while maintaining a high level of technical kind of skills and technical excellence. So that was, I think, challenging for me, because I had to do both at the same time while keeping like a high quality on both sides. It was really fun. I learned a lot through the year, but it was definitely not something easy to manage and to kind of like navigate.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't even know how to marry the two, like working on your soft skills, but at the same time reading all the newest bugs, just exploring everything what's happening. So I suppose it was really challenging. Okay, a few months ago you left Trail of Bits. You're probably one of the most influential figures in Web3 security.
Oh,
everyone knows you. Other company founders like Patrick from Cypher quotes you as his role model. You've been building tools that are used across the industry, so you've achieved a lot. Where do you go next? Like, what's your like now you're an independent security researcher. What are your next steps? Like, what's some of the what's the next big thing, right, that you're going to work on?
I thought really good question. First, I want to say thanks for all the kind word you said. It's really, I appreciate like the feeling. For me, so what I'm seeing next for myself is that right now I'm taking a couple of months just to focus on technical work. I have a couple of clients for which I'm performing like private audit on different things. So I really want to go back kind of like, to the kind of, to the tranche in a sense. So it's what I'm doing now. I'm going to focus on that probably up until like the end of the year, just to get like kind of a feeling of where the state is at, what are like the different things, and making sure I'm still kind of like on top of my game on the technical side. After that, to be honest, I don't know yet what I'm going to do. I have a couple of ideas. Obviously, I've talked to a couple of people, but I'm staying open in my kind of opportunities, and I will basically see where life is taking me in a sense.
Yeah. So you've entered kind of, I would assume, an exploration phase.
Yeah.
So you've been a part of like a company where there are processes, everything. Now you just want to kind of explore what's out there.
Yeah.
I guess a lot of teams are would want to lock you in, so you work with them on the next big thing. So yeah, I hope you will choose something great there. Okay, let's kind of now switch to the next segment of their interview, which is just discussing the security industry, also discussing all of these various tools that you build and what kind of drives your work in the space. So Slither, it's probably one of the most used tools for static analysis, and you're kind of one of the people that were building it all of this time. can you take us back to kind of its origin, how it started, and how you joined TrailBits pretty early. So how did you decide when you joined that you want to build these tools for kind of automated and semi-automated ways of finding bugs, right?
Yeah, great question. So, as I have a background before like joining Trailwind, I already had like a background building tool and working on this type of things. It was kind of natural for me to go also in that direction. I think in a way I'm kind of like a lazy person. Like if I find the same bugs manually 5 times, I just don't want to find it manually again. I want to have a tool that does it for me, just because at some point it becomes boring to find over and over the same things. So that's one of the reasons why I'm always trying to automatize whatever I'm doing. So that's kind of like how I started to approach like building Slither. The way really Slither was built and like the reason it exists in the form it's existing today, it's really to kind of like fill the gap that the Solidity compiler has. There are a lot of things that the compiler, like Solidity compiler, is not providing. If you want to build static analysis, doesn't have a good intermediate representation, doesn't have like any kind of like a built-in that helps people to write like static analysis on top of it. So really, I started Slither because I needed something to build static analysis on top of, and like the compiler was not providing that. And over time, it ended up growing. We have like a lot of detector on it. We have a lot of different analysis. We have a lot of different things inside, but really like kind of like the foundation of it is to become and to be like a Solidity or smart contract framework for static analysis. And it was really what was driving like a lot of the decision and a lot of the design choice. So it's really like, I need static analysis in my day-to-day. Doesn't exist. I'm going to build this.
Mm-hmm. So you just seen a gap on the market. There isn't such tool. Let's just build it.
Yeah.
You mentioned you're lazy in kind of finding bugs that are obvious, that are kind of repeated. Have you ever considered like pursuing a career of a white hat bug bounty hunter? Since I assume most bug bounty hunters, they obviously don't go line by line. They don't find common vulnerabilities. In most cases, they cannot pattern match a bug. They really have to look for complexity. They really have to, just focus on that one bug, on that one attack scenario. Have you ever considered that that path?
So I've been doing bug hunting kind of like on the side for many years, but not as a kind of like a full-time thing. It's more like, sometimes you stumble into something, you are curious, you look at it, and, if you're lucky, you find something. To move toward doing that full-time, I don't know, I might try at some point and, take a couple of months to do it. I'm still in my exploration phase, so I might end up doing that actually, in a couple of months. But I haven't done it in the past, mostly because I was busy doing a lot of different things. So I could only do bug hunting, on my weekend, on my night, or like, on the side, in that sense.
Yeah. I guess it's hard to dedicate all the time to one thing, especially in your case, if you've been building tools, working with teams, you like to obviously engage with also others, mentor people, talk with people. So yeah, this is kind of, it would be maybe a shift in direction. So what feature, like if you could work on Slither for the next year, full time, 80 hours per week, what features would you add to it? What's missing? What's missing in there?
Yeah, that's a good question. Probably the combination with LLM is what can be the next step with Slither, in the sense that there's definitely an opportunity to leverage like AI model to do some other things, and there's a lot of information within Slither that can be extracted and can be useful for agent and things like that. So that would probably be one thing I would explore. The second one is something which we try many times to do at Raspbit, but we never had the resources, unfortunately, and the time to do it, is to create better user interface on top of Slither, because it does have like a lot of information about the code base, but most of the people that can leverage this information, they need to know the Python API of Slither. So probably 10% in the space can do it. While if we had like, some kind of visual representation, like some VS Code integration where you could, you click on a variable, you ask, okay, what are all the variables that are related to this one? What are like the different control flows? What are the different things? I think that will kind of enable a lot of the power of Slither for people to use it on a day-to-day basis. So probably going either towards the direction of integration with AI or in the integration of like more of a user interface type of things.
Mm-hmm. So now, when you mentioned AI, obviously this is like hot topic in the industry, and there are some like now AI tools popping up that also analyze code and look for bugs. First question: have you used any of these tools, and do you think that kind of LLMs can find certain bugs that the static analysis cannot? Are these like complementary, or what's your experience?
There is probably an overlap in the type of bug that both techniques of program analysis and LLM-based analysis can find. There's probably an overlap, and there's probably also like area where there is no overlap. So there are probably some bugs that an LLM can find that a static analyzer cannot, and vice versa. I think the challenge there is not necessarily to find bugs, but more to reduce the number of alerts, so-called false positive, that a model will result into. Because if you have a model that ended up generating 10 warning per line of code, sure, great, you're going to find bugs, but no one is going to use it. So I think it's really like one of the challenge. It's kind of interesting that you're mentioning that, because when I was looking at the early days like 6 months or a year ago of like LLM model to find vulnerability, I had a bit of struggle in the sense that I could not really see the benefit of this technique over traditional static analysis, because for most of the time, if you know how to use Slither, you can write a detector that does exactly what the LLM does. But I kind of like had a realization recently that it's not necessarily that it can find things that Slither cannot find, but now it gives the ability to everyone to leverage reasoning on the code. And what I mean by that is that if you know Slither in and out, if you know the API of Slither, if you know like static analysis, you can build what you need. But if you don't have this knowledge, it is more difficult for you to build custom detector. While with LLM, because it's like natural text, anyone can do it. It's kind of like in a way that LLM allows everyone to become like a junior experienced static analysis kind of, which is really nice for scaling and for allowing more people to play with type of things.
Mm-hmm. So it's just more usable, right? It's easier. I think so. Easier to use.
There are places where AI is going to help us outside of finding bugs. Like writing report, code understanding. I think pretty much anyone nowadays use Cursor or some windsurfer or whatever they want to use. So there is definitely a lot of things that can be useful using this model, not just finding bug, but all the things around that also is going to be really, really useful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm personally using it to write reports, also using it just to explain some user flows, user scenarios. On the other hand, I see a lot of junior engineers, researchers that overuse it, that don't think. They just ask the AI a question, AI gives them an answer, and they just take it for granted. So, but this I suppose will be a big problem for the future generation, just on how to approach reasoning, how to approach thinking and learning. I believe that will kind of significantly change.
I'm actually recommending people that are starting to not use LLM as long as they are in a learning phase. And the reason for that is that a lot of code review goes with pattern recognition, understanding how to explore a code base. And this is kind of skill that you have to grow to become a good security researcher or engineer. And if you don't develop that and you let an AI do it for you, along the line within your career, you are not going to develop the skill that you need to stay relevant. So for people that are starting their journey, be careful with the overuse of AI, as you mentioned, because sure, it's going to help you, maybe making you faster, but you are going to miss part of the learning experience. So, you have to be careful if you're learning something to not replace your progression in your learning by like a tool.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion, but I believe people are lazy by nature. So if you have the tool, you'll use it. If it gives you some kind of an answer or something, you'll use it. I was just mentoring one also junior researcher, and his every second word is AI. I ask AI to write tests. I ask AI to explain. I ask AI to write a report. And I was like, look, you cannot use AI for everything. You have to think. You have to understand. You have to just give yourself time to think for 30 minutes without interruptions, without looking for immediate assistance. But yeah, I guess this will be kind of the challenge of our lifetime. Luckily, we are maybe old enough to have kind of to learn how to think and work without these tools. So it's a good benefit. Okay, now just a perhaps slightly different topic. So you've built like Slither, a bunch of these other tools like Medusa, like Echidna, and there are a lot of critics that say, okay, this is just for marketing purposes. This is just to pump the rate for kind of security reviews for security researchers. How would you respond to that criticism? And then also, why are you giving these tools for free in the first place? Have you ever thought, like in the beginning of Slither, that you should license this, right? Just sell it for as a service?
Yeah, that's a great question. To avoid confusion, because I know I'm kind of like really visible in the space, and sometimes people don't have like the full context. I'm not the author of Echidna or Medusa. That was done by other engineers, so credit go to them. I haven't created all the tool. I focus mostly on Slither, and I've been using Echidna and Medusa since the beginning, but more as a user, less as a developer. So the marketing angle. I think I understand why people think that, but it's nowhere close to reality, because the reality is that to build this type of tool, you need a strong expertise and you need a lot of time. And the amount of effort you put into building open source tool with respect to the marketing opportunity you get is like the return of investment is negative, basically, because you will get much more marketing if you were just doing like, random tweet, random blog post or whatever, because the amount of effort and expertise you need for this tool is just really, really high. A way to think about that, like if you look at the past 5 years, how many companies have built open source tool and have maintained open source tool? I mean, Trail of Bits, Cypherin, I've been doing that recently, and that's probably it, right? But if it was like such a great marketing tools, all the companies that are pushing and doing like a lot of marketing will be doing that. And the reason why no one is doing that is because it's not worth it. Like the return of investment for marketing is negative. There is a marketing benefit, but it's more like a byproduct of it and not like the goal of building the tool. So now for the reason on why it's open source and why it's free. First, this tool, they needed to be present. Like, it's a type of tool doesn't exist, so someone has to build it. Let's do it, right? We did try to commercialize part of it a couple of years ago. It was called Critic, and we try like to have a SaaS where some of the Slither detector would be public, some of that would be private. What's ended up happening is that no one wants to pay for it, so we kind of like ended up killing the services. And we were in a situation where, well, we are building the tool, they are there, if they can contribute to the greater good, if they can help the industry, I mean, that's good too, right? Like not everything you do for work, not everything you do, in a day-to-day needs to generate revenue. It's totally fine, to also help the industry. It's totally fine to also, contribute to public good and to, greater things than just generating more revenue. At least that's kind of my philosophy and my perspective.
Yes, yes. I agree there. I think this criticism is unjustified. It's just perhaps a way of your of Trail of Bits, not yours directly, but Trail of Bits competitors just trying to have some argument against, and that's basically it. As you mentioned, it's well, I cannot assume how hard it is to build these tools. You have to get the right people to build them. You have to do it throughout years, So you have years of grind to get some kind of a product, and then in the end it does benefit you, but it benefits also everyone else in the space. So it's kind of a win-win. It would be great if other teams are also building, but yeah, again, you need to have a team. You need to have people that are able to deliver this, and yeah, this I think is extremely rare. Okay, so let's talk a bit more about kind of the security mindset and just how to approach security reviews. So I'm just going to quote you. So from your webpage, you say that you don't deliver reports. You help build stronger systems. So you want to work with clients to build a resilient code base.
Yeah.
You're, I believe, the author of the blockchain security model. Can you kind of guide us how this model is being used, and how do you evaluate the code base? So how do you use it when you're working with a concrete client?
Yeah, so like the blockchain security maturity kind of like a model was basically created through many years of experience and going through many reports to kind of try to identify what are the things that are kind of like highlighting probably bad practices, bad modeling, bad design, like things you need to improve to just get like a better security posture. The way I always kind of like think about security review is that when we do a security review, our job for like 95% of our job is to find bugs, like finding as many bugs as possible within the time you have, and the additional 5 to 10% is really about contextualizing what you're finding with respect to the client. And what I mean by that is that often you will find issues that stem from like systematic problem with the development lifecycle, and this is where you can also help the design, or you can have the architecture to improve. For example, if you find if there is a function and the scope of the function is really unclear, it does a bunch of different things, you can kind of help the client to understand, okay, maybe isolate a bit more the code base, maybe think about like this component, maybe it should be one component, maybe it should be two, maybe there's like a different things. Same for testing, how do you approach testing, how do you approach documentation, how do you approach like all the different things. For example, you can take a code base and look for rounding issue forever. Like, it's complex, it's difficult to find, it's difficult to analyze, but you can take a different approach and also help the client to build a code base for which analyzing rounding is going to be much simpler. For example, having like individual function to round up and down, having explicit rounding for every single operation, having like an isolation of the arithmetic function so that you can test them in isolation instead of being kind of intertwined within the function scope. So these type of things are not like a fine security vulnerability per se, but they are going to help the developer to not have vulnerability in the long term. It's like in traditional Web2 security, we call it shifting left, where you are trying really to help in the design, help in the architecture, and help kind of like understand why do you have this finding, why do you have this vulnerability, and how to avoid having them in the future. So it's really like all the maturity evaluation, or like kind of like all the stuff is really about that, like not just finding bugs, but also helping to grow as a software engineer.
Helping, yeah. This is sometimes like a slippery slope. So security reviews are expensive. Everyone knows that. You get a client, but then in the middle of the review, your researchers that are doing the review are telling you the code base is too complex. The best way forward is not to continue with the review. The best way forward is to refactor and then probably do another review. How do you have this conversation with the client? Do you have any like specific example? I believe on your personal page, you're mentioning the balancer rounding design. Maybe if you can tie in this to that story, if it's kind of a concrete example on how to actually have this conversation with the client, so it doesn't look like to be honest, like a cash grab where you're just recommending something to kind of prolong the security review for
Yeah, that's a good question. So the balancer one is actually really close to what I was describing before with the rounding, where, while doing the review, we ended up finding a lot of rounding related issues. So we had a conversation with them and we provided some recommendation on how to think and how to design the arithmetic, such as like the likelihood of rounding issue will be lower. And they ended up following us and following our recommendation. If you look at their code base now, they have like explicit rounding, they have like a lot of additional kind of like a function, they have a lot of additional tests and more focus on that. So I think it's a good example where, the client listen to the long-term recommendation, implement them, end up in a situation where they have just a better security posture for the long term, particularly for projects that are building not over 6 months, but over many years of development. Now to the question, which is a bit more concrete, what happens if that realization goes mid-review? That depends on the client, right? And depend also on your team, on your scheduling and everything. Because sometimes you might be able to pause the review, give back like a couple of weeks, and use that time for later on. Sometimes you cannot, just because it's as a security provider, it creates a lot of issue. It might create a lot of issue on your side, so you might not be able to kind of shift the time. If you're not able to shift the time, you can then think about, okay, what additional value can I provide to the client? Because maybe it's not worth continuing the review of like the different component, but maybe you can sit down with the developer, help them to design. Maybe you can write tests. Maybe you can write design documentation. You can leverage your expertise of whatever you have done before, plus like the time you spend on this code base to help them on whatever they need. You can also shift to like a different component depending on the situation. So there are a lot of avenues as long as you focus on what value do you provide to the customer. So it's not just about keeping your time and being paid, but it's also about what do they get from that. And if the best value for them is, you have to stop and go back on the whiteboard, maybe help them to go on the whiteboard.
Yeah, definitely. And did you kind of nurture this kind of culture in Trello Bits with the researchers, like just kind of educate them the importance of judgment also when you're doing a security review? So it's not, as you said, 95% is finding bugs, but then maybe those 5% are how do you communicate with the client, and just frankly, how do you judge a project in certain phases of a security review? Sometimes it's as you said, not the best option to continue the review. Just maybe do work more on documentation and so on. Did you have some specific way of educating people, or maybe it was done through docs like the blockchain security model, where people were kind of going through it and learning from it?
Yeah, I think it's kind of core to 12 bits and not just in the blockchain space. It's the same kind of mentality that they are applying in like the non-blockchain practices. So I think it's really part of the culture of the company too, in that sense. So yeah, there was like, when someone was training the team, there was some kind of training in that direction. There are a couple of things that you will quickly notice on the report on 12 bits. There is always like a code maturity evaluation, which is based on what we just discussed and like the criteria. So this kind of help security researcher to think about it, because now it's kind of like in back of their mind. I need to think about security posture. I need to think about like long term. I need to think about all of that. And what I've realized, along the line, that most of the security researchers, they do that implicitly. Like they always, when you review code base, you're like, that's not right. Like that's not, something is bothering me or something I don't like in this architecture. But they don't necessarily go through the process of writing down and communicating that. So it's really about, they have the information, pushing them in the direction of sharing that information and how to share it. But as you mentioned, like there's also like a lot of communication, because as a security researcher, you're also a consultant, and you need to understand how to convey information, how to explain a vulnerability to a client. You need to kind of know how to adapt your messaging so that they can kind of receive it, to the best of their ability. So there's like all of that you need to train people on, and making sure everything goes smoothly.
Yeah, it's actually good realization. Like researchers on a review, they have the information, that they're skilled enough, they know, they have opinions on the code base. The difference is, are they just communicating this in their private Telegram group, or just chatting, and or they're actually thinking on how can we transmit this information to the client in the right way? It should be in the report, and so on.
Exactly.
Okay. Despite all the reviews, a project does some projects get hacked, get wrecked. I assume you have a history of Web 2 hacking and now Web 3 hacking. Can you share maybe one interesting story of a war room or some hack? It can even be in Web 2 world that you have kind of witnessed or just heard from a friend.
It might come as a surprise, but I was not involved in that many war rooms through the year, in particular in the in the Web3 space, in the sense that I think we were lucky. Actually, most of our clients did not got hacked. Most of our clients did not went through an incident. Some of them had incident, but like the number was pretty low. So I did not. I went through a couple of war rooms, but it was kind of on more kind of like a one-time things and not something I've done, a lot in that sense. So I don't have necessarily like a cool story to share because I just don't have many stories in that direction.
Okay, okay, that's fair. I mean, that's also good. if you kind of the projects you've worked on didn't have security incidents, so it's I would say a badge of honor, right?
It's also a bit of luck, in fairness.
Yeah. There's probably a bit of that as well. Let's just discuss a bit more the security approach projects should take. So, in your opinion, what tools and techniques should be employed at what time in the development of the project? So let's say the dev team pushed their first commit, first code. Like what techniques should they start implementing? What would you recommend? Like, let's go from like first commit to pushing to production. What do you think?
I would even start before the first commit. So I've been pushing this kind of idea and this paradigm of invariant-driven development, where kind of like the end goal for especially for smart contract is for the team that are building smart contract to know their invariant. So invariant are facts about the code base that should remain true. It's used a lot when you are doing fuzzing or when you are doing formal verification, but it's not just for fuzzing and formal verification. And what I mean by that is that if before even writing your first line of code, before kind of like going into the implementation of your code base, you know what are the main invariants, you know how you're going to test them, how you're going to document them, how you're going to maintain like a sync between your documentation and your code. You are going to be ahead of the curve because once you understand what are your invariants, you can design even the code base in a way that makes it easier to track them. A good example of that is Uniswap with the K invariant, right? Because they know the invariant ahead of time. It's not like an afterthought. It's something that it's core of the design of the protocol. They have designed a protocol which rely on that. And just because of that, because of this kind of mindset of having that invariant, the code base is in a better state than it would be if it was like something, they would have at the, last commit or whatever, like, oh, we can add this invariant, we can do fuzzing. No, actually, if you know from before writing any line of code, you can just design everything around that. So it's really about designing and defining your invariant, iterating over them through the development. So once you start writing a couple of, line of code, a couple of components, you can then, you can start by writing obviously a couple of tests. Once you have some kind of like skeleton of your code base, you can start using things like fuzzing. The earliest you start with type of technique, the better you will get. But obviously, as a developer, you also have like a lot of deadline. You have like you have like a constrained resource. So depending on how much time you can spend, it's going to depend on where you want to start. You don't want to start to use like fuzzing and formal method at the end of the development, because usually it's a bit too late to help you, to guide you through like the different kind of like code composition and how you structure the code to make it easier to fuzz or to use formal method. So if you can do that probably halfway at least, it will be beneficial. But if you start again early on, before any line of code, when you are designing the protocol, to think about security and to think about invariant, you are going to be ahead of the industry basically.
Yeah, and I think also the goal is kind of not to refactor too much, obviously, as you approach production. Although when you're just mentioning like kind of starting with the properties, starting with the invariants, maybe we're going to see kind of AI advancing that you will be able to kind of refactor more quickly. Maybe we'll move in that direction if you have like a clear specification, like from beginning, like clear kind of invariance properties. Maybe we'll enter that world where it's actually easy to refactor. But
I would be extremely careful to produce Solidity code with LLM. It's okay if you do that for a front end or like code which is not like critical. Anything which is smart contract related should probably not be written by LLM at all. You can use that for the test, for sure. You can write test and generate test. But if you use LLM, like the risk of hallucination with respect to your code base is really high, and the impact of such hallucination in your code base can be, as bad as we know in the space. So I'm hoping people don't go in that direction, but maybe they will.
Yeah. Okay, I was kind of assuming in a few years' time,
Okay.
if it gets really better. But yeah, I get your position. Right now, it's not there. I mean, it's definitely not there, and it tends to produce a lot of code, like much more code than a human would produce. So it's quite dangerous. Okay, like what everything that you have described kind of feels like each team should have someone internally that's a security researcher, or at least has this security mindset. And I don't believe this is the case right now. I don't even know if top teams like Uniswap and so on, do they have like an in-house security researcher, or they perhaps top teams just hire like developers that are really good, and also have also explore a lot of kind of the side of the security. So how do you like convince teams to hire someone and not just to rely on external audits, external consulting? It's probably not sufficient to kind of outsource security.
Yeah, you're mentioning something I think which is important, is that most of the team, if you are going to develop a protocol which is going to handle a lot of value, you need to have an internal security person, team, depending on the size of your company, right? Because you cannot outsource everything which is related to security. There is a lot of nuance. There is a lot of information that you have internally. There's a lot of additional risk outside of smart contract, like operational security risk, off-chain risk, that you need someone to look at. And you can get outsourced, and you can get some third party helping you, but you also need to have like in-house security. There are some teams that have actual security teams within their structure. Most of the time, it's not going to be DeFi protocol. It's going to be layer 1, layer 2, like people building node and building like more complex infrastructure. You mentioned Uniswap. I know, for example, anyone listening, I know Uniswap is hiring for security researcher. So that might be a good place to go. So they are trying to build like a security in-house for sure. Now, the way I've kind of seen it happening for the people that have like security in-house, if it's a small team, like a small DeFi team of like 5, 6 people, usually if you have one of the co-founder owning security for a while, it's probably a good practice. While a co-founder, because you need someone who can say we are not going to production until A, B, and C is fixed. You need someone with this responsibility and this power within the company, because if you have a small team and you have one security person and this security person doesn't have any influence, any responsibility of security, they are probably not going to have like that much impact within the project. So a co-founder is probably pretty important. Having a co-founder owning security is also putting the company in a place where at some point the co-founder is not going to be able to do it because it's just too much. And they know they will need to create an internal team because they will go through some of the security kind of things through whatever time they have. They will also be better equipped to build that internally. Hiring like a first security researcher, hiring like, whatever you need and building up from that is probably good practices. If you have a team where, you have like 20 sales, marketing, BD people and no security researcher, that's probably a red flag.
Yeah. I mean, security is vital, and this is not just because we are security researchers and we're just pushing our agenda, but it's really vital to, like, if you get hacked, if your private key gets leaked, you're going to zero, right? It will be extremely hard to recover from this.
Yeah.
But then, on the other hand, a lot of teams just have this mindset of it's not going to happen to me, right? It's I'll just do something, but probably it's not going to happen. So I guess we perhaps just need more education, like more paranoia in the
I think
it's
space. Like having someone paranoia within your team is going to help you for sure. It's really it's more of a mindset than a set of skills. Like you need that type of mindset within your company. And you mentioned something interesting, like it's not security provider pushing for more services. Like here, it's actually the opposite. We are, pushing people to hire internally so that they don't need to rely that much on external provider.
Yeah. And this is important because, I mean, when someone is internally, he knows the internal process, he can work on the process. You cannot outsource this, right?
No.
Only if you're going to outsource it so this company works with you for a very long periods of time, right? But this is then maybe like literally equivalent to having a hire, right?
Yeah.
There's also been a lot of debate in the industry around terms and language we use, right?
Yeah.
We're a young industry. Some terms haven't been that well established yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe the biggest debate was around audits and security reviews. Mm-hmm. Some people were, when these discussions were taking place, they were mocking it, just kind of laughing it out and just saying this is not important. But language matters in all facets of life, in everything. Language matters because it gives some meaning to words. So what's your? This is my position. What's your kind of stance on this? Do we need to maybe give kind of clearer names to certain things? So it's easier to explain maybe to founders what they need to employ at what time in their project.
So, okay, I am the type of person who is going to be annoying sometimes with the naming. like if you try to build a tool and you try to do some specific technique, I'm going to be like the one annoying and saying, okay, this is a term you need to employ. This is how it works because there's like a strong definition of it and you should follow it. For security review versus audit, I don't think it's that important. I've been using security review through my career. I've been using audit from time to time as kind of like an exchange things. I get the point that there is like a bit of a syntactic difference there, and there's like some difference, but I don't think it's that important outside of the security bubble on Twitter, basically. I think within the Web3 security space, we do live a bit in like in our echo chamber, and we do like to kind of like make memes, try to be kind of like making visibility on Twitter or whatever. I don't think security review versus audit is really what matter for developer, for clients. So I would recommend people to use security review. If someone say audit, I'm not going to be, you should not say audit, just because I don't think it's that important.
Okay, so for this like concrete case, you don't think it's important,
Yeah.
but if I'm understanding, you do think we need to standardize maybe some other language across the industry.
Yeah, like I was
Like,
mentioning building tool, like like if someone is building like a specific tool, on the technical side, I think it's important to have the right terminology because it might kind of like help people to understand what you are building. It might help people to understand what are the limitations, what are this type of things. So for the things that are technical by nature, I do think you need to be precise on the wording. For the things that are less technical, if it doesn't have like a huge impact, I mean, it's fine. Does that make
okay,
sense?
yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I kind of have a divided opinion on this. I do believe that there should literally be like a standardized doc that says, okay, you're at this stage of your project and you should do this, and all of these different techniques and tools should have different names. Obviously, we have names right now, but maybe just to explain to a project what do they need to do at a certain stage of, and just use some strong words that are, when you mention them, everyone knows what they mean, right? So that's kind of my opinion there. I'm not sure how this will look like. I've never been personally involved in building some standards and so on, so I can't speak from personal experience, but I do believe that some like some standards will kind of be needed as we mature, as we progress.
There were actually a couple of projects through the year that try to do that, try to put like a, kind of terminology of the different things. I don't think many people have used them, and I don't think they are still alive. But yeah, people have tried to do that. Yeah, it depends. I do agree that having a kind of like a development lifecycle roadmap is
Yeah,
important for developer. I do think it exists from like a couple of companies. They do provide this type of things, but it's not standardized across all the companies. More like each company has kind of like slightly different version of it in a sense.
we definitely agree that we need more researchers in the space. We need more talented researchers. We need more researchers that work on tooling, also manual reviews, bug hunters, and so on. A few years ago, there was this trend that started, and it was sharing the earning potential on Twitter and through some blog posts. And this also attracted a lot of people to join Web3 security. Some people argue that this is not the best way, that this is maybe attracting people that are here just for the short term. Others don't see any issue with this. This is also this is copy pasting from the e-commerce, social media influencers and so on. And in these fields, it has been very, very successful, right? A lot of people start like e-commerce business just because they've seen some person earning a lot of money. What's your position on this?
That's a good question. It's a tricky one. In a sense, I think it did help for sure. Like seeing like all the big number, it did attract a lot of talent in the space, and a lot of people that are here today might be partially here because they heard about whatever like Simichel was earning or things like that. But at the same time, I think we have to be careful as an industry because if that's all our value proposition to attract people, you can earn money. We are not going to attract like the right people. We're going to build up skills for newcomer that might not have like a good ethos or might not have like that are not necessarily responsible, and they might easily turn black hat down the line. And it's also not necessarily a good long-term strategy. And what I mean by that is that there are actually like a lot of social studies around that, in the sense that money is not the best long-term incentive to produce good work. What ends up happening is that if all your incentive is money driven, people are going to game whatever system you have to earn more money instead of focusing on value, instead of focusing on producing good work. They're just going to focus on whatever make them like the most short-term gain. And what I mean by that is that I think it's a nice thing to have as an incentive, but we need to have better and like kind of more broad incentive within the space. So it's not just about money. It's about, you want to push a set of the art. You want to challenge yourself. You want to work with, people really competent. You want to, learn. You want to be at the frontier of the industry. You want to really kind of like, be in a position where no one else has been before because you're at this frontier of what people are building. You are passionate by security. You are passionate by helping people. That's the type of mentality we want to attract to the space, and not just people that want to earn as much as they can. So I think it was useful for a time, but we have to be careful that cannot be our only value proposition as an industry.
So you'd always prioritize kind of attracting people based on certain ideals, based on certain aspirations, than just kind of financial gain.
Yeah.
I think there's a fair bit of this as well in the industry, right? Blockchains have this promise of a more transparent, more kind of decentralized, more fair system. So I do believe a lot of people also just start working on blockchain. Some of them end up in Web3 security just because they want to have a better system. I do think that just like money-wise, it's more kind of straightforward. Everyone understands a number. Everyone, it's much easier to convey that type of information and attract people. I would kind of draw a parallel with poker. A lot of people started, playing online poker because they've seen that there's a huge chance to win. So a lot of them got onboarded on through kind of that way, and I guess a lot of them became successful. I mean, some of them became successful poker players. So that's definitely kind of one way of attracting people.
One thing with that is that it's not sustainable long term. Like people that are attracted by like gain are going to make a lot of money, and they're not going to stick to that career more than 2 years, whatever. And we do need people that stay for longer than that to actually build like stronger foundation.
So what's kind of the solution there? Perhaps we need to go to the universities. Perhaps we need to have stronger role models, right? We have to have some kind of mentors that I don't know, just attract people and kind of just educate them.
I had actually like a discussion with some founder in the space because, sometimes people have a lot of visibility in the space and they are going to employ some kind of like not great tactics in terms of sales, in terms of how you do businesses. And you have to be careful because when you're in a position of having impact within the industry and you don't follow good practices, you don't, you don't necessarily have like a strong ethos, that end up influencing everyone who works with you. And what you end up creating is like a community where people don't follow like a strong ethos and don't follow kind of like a strong guideline into how to build like businesses and everything. And that's dangerous, and that create toxic community, that create kind of like a place where you probably don't want to be. And I think start to see that in the blockchain space where we are seeing, at least in my perspective, I can be wrong, but we are seeing more and more toxicity within our own community. And that's kind of like a red flag that, okay, something is not going well and we have to be careful, because if we are not doing something to improve and to reduce the toxicity within the community, it's just going to increase and we might end up being in a bad position in 2 years from now.
Yeah, I'm also seeing that when I joined like 2 years ago, it was quite different. Although it was bear market there was a lot of people getting onboarded, a lot of excitement around competitions. Maybe this is just a cycle, each kind of industry, each segment just goes through different cycles. But I completely agree that influential figures like company founders, other figures, they should be careful on what they're tweeting, on what they're saying, because their words matter. Like when they say something, a lot of people will follow it. So they should definitely kind of think twice before saying stuff. Okay, let's kind of move to another segment, which is I'm personally trying to kind of start a security agency and kind of scale it. A lot of other researchers, they team up, try to set up a small security shop. If you were to start like a Web3 security agency tomorrow, how would you position yourself in the market? What gaps do you see, and what would be the problem you're solving?
Yeah, I would start by taking a different approach in the sense that if I start a company, I want to have a company that match my drive, that match what I want to do and what I'm excited about. So it's less about what market I will do, what product I will build, but more about why I'm doing what I'm doing and what drives me. And the reason for that is that from experience, if you know what drives you, if you know what pushes you forward, this is where you are going to be like the most efficient. This is where when things are going to become difficult, when maybe you don't have many clients, where you struggle a bit, you still have this drive that can maintain going forward. Once you identify that, you can build a business on top of it. You can say, okay, this is what motivates me. This is my drive. How can I have this drive that fit within the market? How can I have this intrinsic motivation that match whatever I'm seeing within the market? Because I think if you have this approach, this is where you are going to be the most robust and the most resilient long term. If you are just trying to build a company because everyone is building a company because you can do it, if you're lucky, it might work. You might find good clients and everything, but when things become difficult, and they are going to be difficult, they are going to have difficult time, it might become more challenging to have a direction, to have kind of a vision of what you are trying to do, and you might just get lost, but in whatever the market is doing.
I guess the younger the person is, you're more going to just follow some cool stuff that's happening, trying to copy others, trying to find like this perfect way of doing things. And the older you get, you just realize that you have to kind of build things around what you're interested in and what you like doing, and just trying to get good there. So right, no definite answer there. Like not like here are the steps, just do these 5 things and you're good to go. Okay.
Some people are going to tell you 5 steps you need to follow or whatever. It might work for them, might work for you, but if there was a magic, once to build a business and everything will work, everyone would follow it, right? There are things to consider. For example, the Lean Startup is a book which provides some advice into thinking about value, thinking about customer first. So there are kind of a couple of techniques that you can apply to help you along the way. But I do think if you don't have a specific drive for yourself and you don't know what it is, it might be more just challenging to know where you're going to go.
Yeah, makes sense. Definitely. One part of building a company is having great researchers, right?
Yeah.
So your company is only as good as the people working in there. You mentor a lot of researchers in TrailowBits. What's number one trait for a good researcher? And what's perhaps one trait that might look important from the outside, but it actually isn't?
Mm-hmm. I think for a security researcher, a really good trait to have is around curiosity and thinking outside of the box, because that's hard to teach. Having kind of a natural attacker mindset where you see something and your mind goes directly into, how can I abuse that system? If it comes naturally to you, if it's something kind of intrinsic to you, it's a really good trait to have, because I've tried through the year, it does work. You can teach it to people, but it does require significant effort to teach a mindset to someone. So that's definitely something which is, I think, a good trait to have. On the technical side, you can learn. There's a lot of things you can learn if you are curious, if you want to learn, if you want to push yourself. But if you have that as a natural kind of trait, things are just easier. Being proactive in your learning, being proactive, in what you are doing is also like a really good trait for security researcher. You don't want someone who just sit, they do their work and, are not curious about anything happening around them because they are not going to progress in an environment like blockchain where every 6 months there's like a new type of protocol. You need people that are driven by kind of like that because otherwise they are going to stay kind of like, at the same level all the time and they're not going to catch up with whatever is happening. So I'd probably think I would look for like curiosity, thinking outside of the box, like attacker mindset, and being proactive in whatever you are doing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
No, you mentioned a trait like, that's not necessarily useful. I don't think there is like a specific thing that is not useful, but I think there is a lot that depends on the person because what I mean by that, like for example, someone might be really, really good on the technical side, but they might be really bad at communicating. And that's okay because you can teach people how to communicate better. You can teach how to, write a report, how to interact with a client, as long as they want it, right? But that's something you can teach. It's the same on the technical side. Maybe like someone is really good at something, but they have some gap. Like I don't know, someone is really good at Solidity. They don't know how to review a node. That's fine. Like you can teach them how to get them as long as they have good intuition and curiosity, as I mentioned before. So there's not necessarily like a fit for all. It depends on sort of where you are at and what are like, your skills.
So number one would be curiosity. And as you mentioned, soft skills can be learned.
Yeah.
Again, some people don't find them that natural or they just don't enjoy engaging in too much communication, which is completely fine. Also, technical skills can be learned, and as soon as you have this drive to learn, drive to explore new things, I also agree that for a researcher you really like to you really need to like just learning new things, just exploring new things, just reading new things, definitely. Okay, I want to kind of wind down the interview at this point. I just have two more quick questions. The first one is, what's your favorite book, TV series, or a movie that everyone should watch? That
I don't read many books, but as we were talking about businesses, I think the lean startup, if you are building a product or like a company, is definitely something I would recommend. If you are starting to manage a team, I would recommend a book called Coaching Habits. It gives like practical things to do when you are managing a team and when you are doing one-on-one. So probably like if you are an engineer going through that path, I would recommend both of them because they're going to help you. At least they did help me.
Okay, so it's in the lean startup and the coaching
habits.
The coaching habits.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll consider those two. Okay, the final question is, I have a set of two choice questions. So I'll just give you two options. You just need to choose one.
Okay, let's do it.
Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Yeah, okay. Ethereum or Bitcoin?
Ethereum.
Ethereum, okay. Mountains or the beach?
The beach.
Okay. This one's a bit spicy. Sherlock or Cantina?
Pass.
Pass, okay. Wine or beer?
I guess it depends. Wine, but depends.
Okay, so no clear favorite.
No
there.
clear, yeah.
Okay, collaborative audit versus competitive audit?
Collaborative.
Yeah. Okay. Espresso or coffee with milk? Espresso. Okay. Work from home or work from office? You probably know.
From home. 100%.
From home, 100%. Okay. And finally, beef steak or tuna steak?
Beef.
Beef steak. Okay. Well, you're French, so I don't think we need any explanations here. Okay, Josselin. This was a very pleasant talk. Thanks for all the information you shared. I'm sure listeners of this podcast will find it interesting. And just final words, so people can find you on Twitter, right? And if you want to have any final words.
Thanks for having me. It was really like a fun discussion. I'm really happy, with all the questions, you prepare for me. It was really an interesting kind of endeavor to do. I'm looking also forward to see like all the new podcasts you're going to play along. It was really cool for me.
Yeah, thanks, Josselin.